Hey there, welcome to the Intentional Academy podcast, where we believe that life is best when it is lived on purpose. If you want help finding time for what matters most, launching your dream career, and building a prosperous future, then you should visit us at intentionalacademy.com. I'm your host, Tony Farrar, joined by your co-host, Justin Thomas, and we are thrilled that you are tuning in today. Hey, Justin.
Hey, Tony. Bonus. Let's get into some good stuff. Yeah,
man. It's a bonus episode, and we are talking about creating a budget so that you can spend your money on purpose this month. This thing's going to air early May 2020, and if you're like we were, you hate the idea of budgeting. Hopefully this episode might change your mind. Before we get to that, you need to know that this episode is sponsored by our free community. When it comes to personal finance, we know how hard it can be. Tracking expenses, sticking to a budget, not only is it difficult, it can feel so restrictive. That's why we built the Intentional Academy community. It's an online discussion forum that takes place daily, and we look at what you're doing with your time, your career, and your money to live your best life. If you'd like to be a part of a community of people who are trying to figure these things out together, you should join us for free at intentionalacademy.com/community. You don't have to do this alone. We are there every day to help you for free at intentionalacademy.com/community. Join us at intentionalacademy.com/community. Budget. Everybody's favorite word.
Dun, dun, dun.
It is May 2020. What's going on with our money this month that's different than usual?
Ooh, well, that varies. I know I don't have daycare expenses right now because my kids can't go.
Right.
So we have some people are receiving stimulus checks.
Interesting.
Some people are receiving unemployment that they weren't planning for. Some people are essential and working hundreds of hours in just tiresome work.
Banking overtime. Or they're getting their hazard pay. There's a lot of folks that are getting hazard pay. Not to mention the fact there are people who were on monthly payment plans for their college tuition who are about to have to stop making that bill every month. Maybe you just moved out of whatever housing you were doing for college and now you're headed somewhere else. So finances are changing for students as well because the semester's ending. Maybe you're starting an internship. Maybe you're starting a full-time job. I sure hope that they're letting you start remotely, something, as opposed to telling you to wait. If you did get stuck waiting, we've got an episode coming out about that real soon.
Episode 7.
intentionalacademy.com/7. You won't find it yet, but give it a little bit of time, baby. So it's the beginning of a new month, and whether it's a weird month or not, I always start from the same place, which is budgets are awesome. Let me tell you how it is that we run ours, and maybe you'll agree with me. It starts like this. There are 4 essential things that you need to survive. Food, shelter, basic utilities, transportation. When we're not on a lockdown anyway, you need the transportation. Because these are the things. If you don't eat, you don't do anything. And if you don't have somewhere safe to live, well, that's an issue too. And I feel for you. Hopefully we can help out if you need it. But beyond that, you got to keep your lights on. You got to water, that kind of stuff. And we need to be able to get to the job that produces the income. Food, shelter, utilities, transportation. But here's the thing. I always start my budget. We do this every month, by the way. We make a new budget every month because, as you can tell, every month is different. Somebody might be coming from out of town. School just ended. We're going to take a trip. Certain holidays where gifts are given always happen in the same months. The point here is we make a new budget every month, and we always start by asking, what is the bare bones essential? Not what do I need to enjoy myself? What do I need to survive the month? So what is the cheapest we can do food for a month for? What is the cheapest we can do housing, utilities, all that kind of stuff?
Okay, and he doesn't, wait a minute.
The thing that makes
Tony. Cheapest does not have to mean I have 4 people in my family. We're going to share a packet of ramen each night, and we will sustain. I mean, let's not take it out of context.
You're right.
We're going to eat, and we're going to eat well, and we're going to eat healthy. But You need to set this is that amount of money that I'm willing to spend on this specific thing. Groceries, your utilities, your mortgage or your rent. So
sure, but part of what makes us feel so positive about our budget is that we do actually start. This might be different for you, and that's cool. But we start pretty rice and beans. We start real low because what happens is once you fund those 4 things, the 4 essentials to the point where you can survive and be all right for the month, anything that's left over, you get to decide what to do with. We usually look at each other and say, we're going to give ourselves a grocery bonus because we want to eat more yummy food. And so we toss some of that margin into that bucket. We don't want to cancel Netflix this month. We're going to toss a little bit more money into the utility budget. And we do that item by item. And so I'm not saying that once that those 4 things are funded at the cheapest level ever, you're stuck there. I just really enjoy the feeling of giving myself permission to spend the rest where I want to. And it might be adding more to one of those categories, or it might be something completely different, like taking a trip or buying a new video game, or, for me, climbing gear tends to be something that I enjoy spending my money on more often than I should. But you know what? Darn it. I earn the money and I budget for it in a way that it doesn't harm my family's future. And so
by doing it this way, we're setting a minimum obligation, and that this is the minimum amount of money that I am obligated to spend each month. And that obligation must include a required debt payment. If you have required that, we don't want to fall behind on our debt payments. And I'm sure in the future we will go into deep debt transformation talks where we can talk about how we can get rid of that debt, because you shouldn't have any and we don't want you to have any. But your transportation, your shelter, your food, and your utilities, and then the minimum required debt payment, that is your base.
Good call.
You also, also wanted to make sure that everybody understands is we don't want you to live like hermits. You do need to give yourself and pay yourself, give yourself some fun money, give yourself, and everything within your means. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, and I think the reason that I like doing the bare bones to start just comes back to I am going to go have some fun this month, and it feels really good to give myself the permission to do it and know that I have the money left this month to be able to do it. I don't want to just eat really cheap ramen all week. I'm going to go buy some nice groceries, but darn it, I'm doing that because I decided to. And I know what it cost me, and I know what I put down to give myself that permission. And that makes it more fun.
Yeah, and budgeting properly allowed us, last year my wife's car decided it wanted to go off to car heaven. So we were able to budget very well for a few months, and then we went out and purchased a used vehicle in cash.
Yeah. And that's the cool thing, right? Because if you start with bare bones and then you build from there, one of the things you can always do is say, we're going to throw our margin towards a goal. Maybe it's getting out of debt if you're dealing with that. I paid my student loans off in 2.5 years, right? We had $95,000 of total debt. That was car, credit cards, student loans, you name it. We financed it, and we paid that off really quick. And that's because once a month we woke up and said, hey, we've got this margin left. What do you want to do with it? And the answer was throw it over there. But it wasn't quite every month. I also took 2 trips to California to go rock climbing. Nicole went on a cruise. We had a kid. We moved across the country without borrowing more money. Because in those months where those things came up, we said, we've got this margin, but we're not sending it to the debt this month. We're going to go play. As long as you're making a conscious decision, I don't really care what you do. It's just you should be well informed of what the implications of your decisions are, and then do the thing that lines up with what you view right now and in the future gives you the best life possible.
Exactly. And these budgets are zero-based budgets.
What's that mean?
So what that means is every dollar that is coming in is accounted for in our budget. And even if it's into a savings bank, a savings block on the budget, every single dollar that is coming in is allocated in some way. And the reason I say that is because we only deal with cash. And when I say cash, I mean we only deal with money. We do not have debt. We're done with debt. It's only what we have coming in and what is going out. There's no credit cards. There's no more financing. There's no more. It's we know how much is coming in, and we're taking care of understanding exactly how much is going out and where it's going.
So what does it mean to do a zero-based budget? Talk me through the step-by-step real quick.
So we already talked about bare bones. So we already talked about your 4 pillars and your minimum required debt payment. So then we also talked about paying yourself. So you have a set amount of money that you know is coming in either in a monthly salary or a biweekly salary, or we also we have some material where we can talk about where you have an irregular income and how do you deal with that. But when you set your budget, you set the knowns. Those are your knowns. I got these 4 buckets for your transportation, your utilities, your housing, and your food, and then your minimum debt payment is your 5th. And then you start setting out your priorities. Like Tony said, you make line items for priorities and you start throwing money at those. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I've hit 0. So I have no more money to allocate into any of these other new buckets. So then you start deciding the prioritization of each of those buckets. And, I think I can go without, this amount in a clothing budget or a shopping budget, or I can go a little bit less on my entertainment to put more into savings for that car or savings for that trip. So everything, it's all of your money is coming in, that number, and then every single dollar is allocated in some way.
Right on. And I like to make sure that I write the number, the predictable portion at least of the number of income that's happening. And then I list all these things in priority order. But my favorite trick here is I always put the goal thing as the last item, because what that does is it makes me see every penny that I put in a different category is coming from the goal. And so if it's a goal I'm excited about, because listen, in my mind, why is way more important than how when it comes to personal finance. The thing that matters is, why the heck do I care? What's the thing that gets you up in the morning? Is it the ability to take 3 vacations a year? Is it that you want to buy your first house? That's what we're working on right now. We're saving for a down payment for the house. So every penny that I spend going out for a beer is a penny that's not going into the down payment fund. And I negotiate between those 2 categories to get a number that makes me feel really good. And it's not 0 in one and all in the other, but I'm making that conscious effort, and I love being able to see that because the goal is the last thing, and I'm trying to put as much into it, it makes me ask the hard questions of what's necessary to survive, what's necessary to feel like I'm thriving, and then from there, what can I have that's left?
Exactly, and this also can help condition your mind for the emotional, because there's a lot of emotion when it comes to money in general. And the reason I say that is, there's a good or a service that I want to go pay for, and I pay for it in cash, and that transfer of paper to somebody else, that visual and touch and feel, triggers something in your mind, and it's emotional. So setting your budget, like Tony says, and setting your goal at the end and understanding where all the money is going, it can help you when you're out shopping and you're like, well, this shirt is $30, but I only have $20 left in my budget. Well, you could purchase that shirt, but $10 just came off of your goal. So you get what I'm saying? Like, you just took away from that the bigger prize that you're going for that short-term game. So it can help condition the emotional response that you have to spending money.
And then every so often, there's a windfall, a tax refund, a coronavirus. What are they calling it?
Stimulus check.
A stimulus check. Unexpected windfall of money comes showing up in the midst of this crisis, but it kind of has a purpose, right?
Yes. So this money has a purpose, and multiple purposes actually. So it's supposed to be a bridge. It's supposed to help get you to the next month. Hopefully, bridge that gap between income between salaries, between paychecks. So it's supposed to help there. But the other thing it's supposed to do is it's called stimulus. It's supposed to stimulate the economy. So the way I would treat it, which, let me preface this, I did not get one. But the way I would treat it is I would save a little, I would put a little towards debt, and then I would spend some, and I would earmark it to be spent, but it needs to be spent local, mom and pop, the struggling local restaurant owned by the immigrant family, this things like that, or people that are
prepay for some haircuts.
Prepay for some hair. Oh yeah, Tony mentioned. I wish that my barber would let me prepay for like 3 haircuts or something like that. You can help purchase meals for communities. You can help donate it to people that are doing good, things like that. But the biggest thing is the money needs to be spent. It needs to not be spent at your big box stores. I'm not going to point out, but it needs to be spent locally and not for foreign goods and services from large corporations that make billions of dollars a year.
I think we should be careful on one point that you made.
Uh-huh.
When you say mom and pop, you got to be careful because national franchises I would count as mom and pops. Things like, the show is in no way endorsed by the following company. Things like Five Guys, and even probably Taco Bell. I don't know.
Yeah, because they're franchised.
These are local franchises. A local business owns that one, and they send what's called a franchise check out to the national brand. And what they get in exchange for that is national branding, national ads, national campaigning, and all that kind of stuff. The recognition of it all. But
I get what you're saying. I think the point. Yeah, I think the point is there. I think the point I'm making is spend it locally, make sure that money stays local, and make sure it's benefiting your community and not going into the pockets of the companies that are. I mean, there are companies right now making billions and billions of dollars just because they're the only places we're allowed to shop. Once again, we could go into an entire episode of opinion of what's going on with that. So it needs to just stay local. Support your community. You love where you live, I assume. You love where you live and you want it to stay prosperous.
Makes me wonder about things like local farmers markets and stuff. That's an area that you just made me think about for the first time, and I feel kind of guilty. I mean, we normally frequent those, but I'm sure they're closed right now, and we're shopping at the box stores. Do you think those folks are just unloading all of their produce and things to box stores right now, or I don't know?
They're working.
Find a local farm, buy some stuff.
Exactly. They're working on ways, and it's funny you say that because we do frequent our downtown farmers market. We have not seen it opening yet. Are you kidding me?
If I'm in Fredericksburg, I'm going to the farmers market with Justin. They've got like the best one on the planet.
So what? But what? It's so funny that he said that because yes, it's funny that he says that though because we are going to purchase a. I can't tell you what the acronym means. I think my wife called it a CSA, but it's basically a community sharing, and it's from a couple of farms and local resources that sell. I think it's like $550, and every week a box is going to show. We go pick it up, and it's full of vegetables. It's going to have eggs. It's going to have maybe some honey or something like that, just depending on what is available that week. And you get more value out of it weekly than what you're actually paying for it weekly. And you pay for it up front, and that upfront helps the farms keep going. That the big upfront cost is stretch out over several weeks, and we get tons of fresh fruit and vegetables, and it's supporting local. So that's so funny that he said that because we're getting ready to purchase them.
That's so cool, man. And I think those types of things are just going to be really impactful right now. Go get your oil changed, get your tires rotated. Those kinds of services, by the way, again, local franchises of national brands usually. Jiffy Lube does not operate 12,000 stores.
Tony would know.
They franchise them out to
Tony
locals.
knows personally. Tony knows personally.
I done changed some oil in my day. Don't miss it. A lot of respect for the folks who do it. Extreme amount of respect for the folks who do it where I live, because we broke 100 yesterday for the first time. By the way, I think they said in recorded history, we broke 100 degrees in the month of April.
Well, it's a good thing you weren't on the side of a rock face, right?
No, it's never a good thing when I'm on the side of a rock face.
I would rather be sweating with the sun beating on me on the side of a rock face.
You're doggone right. I've got plenty of water bottles, just saying. So, how do you get on top of your finances? Well, you make a plan. It's also called a budget, which sounds not fun until you think about what it really is. It's you sending your money where you think it should go. If you think all of it should go to having fun, then doggone it, go have fun, but do it on purpose. Do it because you meant to, not because you accidentally fell into it. And, go ahead.
Sorry. I also wanted to say that when you make your first budget, it will not be perfect. It is very hard if you've never budgeted before to kind of predict things that'll happen. But what you will find is as you budget, it becomes easier to budget. So it just stresses it even more to continue budgeting because it only gets easier. You get very good at predicting unusual expenses that could arise.
We believe in you. And we would love to support you as you try to figure this out for the first time, because I know we both wish we had somebody who would have. So come over and join us at the Intentional Academy community by visiting intentionalacademy.com/community today. It's free. We use an online discussion app that lets us share text and voice and video with each other. Listen, you're not alone in wanting to improve your finances, so why not join a group of people like us that are trying to do things like this? intentionalacademy.com/community.
And we're here to support you. We're just going to keep saying that. We're here to support you. And if you have any questions or anything you'd like us to address in a future podcast, head over to intentionalacademy.com/podcast and send us a message. Let us know what you'd like to hear. If you found value in this episode, leave us a review on whatever podcast platform that you are following us on. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss anything, because we share bonus episodes with our subscribers that you won't
like
hear any other day. Exactly. Bonus. Wow. And lastly, if you know somebody who could utilize this information, who really needs to hear this information, share the episode with them. We'd really appreciate it.
Thank you in advance so much. And that's all for now. Hope you have a great week, everybody.
Have a great week. Stay safe.